Alors, je voudrais poser une question à M. Kandjao, si j'ai bien prononcé le nom. En fait, c'est par rapport à la Côte d'Ivoire et à la Libye surtout. Tout à l'heure, quand vous parlez, vous avez souligné des questions sur la Libye, des contrats qui ont été signés avec la France, ou si vous voulez, avec l'Europe d'une façon générale, l'Occident. Et après, ils ont tiré dessus. Mais il y a quelque chose que je ne comprends pas par rapport à l'Union africaine elle-même. En fait, depuis des années, c'est tout ce que vous avez dénoncé ici, depuis des années, ce sont des choses qui se passent en Afrique. Et en tant qu'un membre de l'Union africaine, je n'ai jamais vu l'Union africaine elle-même dénoncer des choses graves comme ce qui s'est passé en Libye. Par exemple, l'Union africaine n'a pas cherché à freiner la guerre en Libye. L'Union africaine n'a pas cherché à empêcher l'Occident de faire la guerre en Libye. Parce qu'on a vu de ça déjà. Excusez-moi. Je reviens encore sur une autre question en Côte d'Ivoire. En 2002, il y a eu des élections qui se sont organisées en Côte d'Ivoire. Moi, je m'appelle Ouattara, je viens de l'Europe. Et dans ces élections en Côte d'Ivoire, il y a eu des choses catastrophiques. Nous qui sommes allés à l'école plus ou moins, nous sommes traumatisés par rapport à ce qui s'est passé en Côte d'Ivoire. Il y a eu des élections où il y a eu un qui a gagné les élections, où l'Occident a dit choisir leur candidat à eux qui a gagné les élections. Pourtant, vous, Union africaine, vos représentants étaient les premiers à dire c'est Laurent Gbagbo qui a gagné les élections. Mais au fil du temps que les choses évoluent, après vous avez changé d'avis. Vous avez soutenu l'Occident. Et l'Union africaine n'a rien fait pour empêcher la guerre en Côte d'Ivoire. Au contraire, ils ont soutenu. Et jusqu'à là, cette guerre continue. Ma question maintenant, quel est le rôle de l'Union africaine en tant que telle? Parce que quand nous voyons dans les bureaux de l'Union africaine, la plupart des Occidentaux dépassent même les Africains eux-mêmes. Merci.
Suite à la question posée par M. Ouattara Kassoum à l'ambassadeur de l'Union africaine auprès de l'Union européenne à Bruxelles, voici la réponse de ce dernier. M. Gbagbo voulait être un président indépendant, mais tout président qui veut l'être doit être renversé à tout prix par la puissance néocoloniale et remplacé par leurs pions. Alors, pendant la crise en 2002, l'Union africaine voulait intervenir, mais elle était brusquement menacée par Jacques Chirac, le président de la France d'alors. Ce dernier disait ceci, et je cite, « C'est notre jardin. Vous êtes incapable de le comprendre. Mettez-vous en dehors de ça. » À la fin de cette conférence de presse, M. l'ambassadeur de l'Union africaine auprès de l'Union européenne nous a dit ceci à huis clos, qu'on doit poser notre question donc à Paris. Car c'est Paris qui est bien situé pour nous donner une réponse appropriée pour le cas Laurent Gbagbo. Ça veut tout dire, n'est-ce pas?
Mandate with the Organization of African Unity was to free Africa from colonialism and apartheid. So from 1963, at a political level, at a liberation level, the Organization of African Unity concentrated all of its efforts and resources on fighting for independence. In 1994, the mandate was completed. South Africa was no longer under an apartheid regime. We were a democratic country. And the OAU also took cognizance of the impact of the fall of the Berlin Wall and subsequent international developments. And so we started to have an internal debate on the relevance of the Organization of African Unity to the unfolding and developing international political and economic situation. And during this time, we went through a process of transforming the OAU into the AU, the African Union. Firstly, because we had achieved what the OAU's mandate had been, and secondly, we had to be alive to the reality that was taking place. So after about 4 years of negotiations, the heads of states in 2002 launched the African Union. So the African Union became a new organization. It reinvented itself. It had a new mandate. It was working on new programs and projects that it had developed for the socio-economic development of Africa. And at this stage, if you may be aware, we had a program called NEPAD, the New Partnership for Africa's Development. And this was developed and homegrown amongst Africans, and it was accepted by the United Nations and endorsed in 2002. And part of this program was an aspect which dealt with governance, democracy, human rights on the African continent. And the structure that was created was called the African Peer Review Mechanism, APRM. Under this review mechanism, it was a voluntary membership of this mechanism. African leaders who subscribed to the principles espoused there would evaluate themselves and assess themselves and criticize themselves and offer proposals on how to improve on their governance, democracy, human rights records. Up to today, out of the 55 countries, we have about 36 who have volunteered to be part of it. So the commitment is there. The African Union also, since 2006, worked on a charter for democracy, elections, and governance that would form the policy framework for countries to host elections. There are certain principles, there are certain standards to be observed, there are certain structures to be in place, the financing, the independence, the autonomy of the institutions that will oversee elections, etc. And so the African Union has got at its commission, at the headquarters in Addis Ababa, a Department of Political Affairs. We have a Commissioner for Political Affairs, under whom all of these issues reside. And we have election observer officials who go out from our various member states' parliaments, from our various electoral management bodies, as well as experts from our headquarters. Now, the election that our friend speaks of took place as the African Union was being launched. We are talking about the same time frame. However, it must be said that the African Union was not silent in this matter. The African Union was seized of this matter for a long period of time. And I recall that the former president of South Africa had been mandated by the African Union, President Thabo Mbeki, to go and try and mediate and find a solution in Côte d'Ivoire between the various factions. There was Soro there, if I recall correctly, there was Gbagbo, there was the Ouattara factor, and Côte d'Ivoire could have been a different story. It could have been different. And once again, history has a tendency of repeating itself, and people make the same mistakes over and over. A previous president of the country across the border then said, "This is our backyard.
Yes.
You do not understand it. You do not know it. So get out." You hear the arrogance in that. It came from across the border.
Yeah.
Not by the one who just lost office, his predecessor, President Chirac. This is our backyard. Can you be so arrogant about having been a colonial power that destroyed people's lives and countries and livelihoods and culture? And you come back and you say it's your backyard? External interference. Neocolonialism. That is where the complication came. Because if a president does not report to the capital next door, that president is removed from power. There is a pattern. Many of you will recall, I will close now. Many of you will recall Haiti. Haiti was about to celebrate its 200th year of independence. The first independent black state in the world was Haiti. Africa was working closely with Haiti because Haiti and Haitians are from the African diaspora. The president at that time was Jean-Bertrand Aristide. And President Aristide no longer wanted to be close to the former colonial master. He was being too independent. So, we all know the circumstances under which he was removed from office and had to flee Haiti. So, that is one instance. Côte d'Ivoire is another instance. President Gbagbo was not willing to be influenced by the former colonial power. And what happened? At all costs, he had to be removed and replaced. Madagascar, President Ravalomanana wanted to be an independent president of his country. And what happened? He was removed. We know the history of certain former colonial powers when it comes to mercenaries overthrowing elected governments, destabilizing countries. Yet these are the ones who lecture us on human rights, democracy and governance. The very same. So my friend, Côte d'Ivoire, unfortunately you'll have to ask Paris.
Thank you.